And she looked at me with a very puzzled expression saying, "I thought I was told that you should never introduce an animal bill or an HOA bill." So I will say, I think it's safe to say that people have strong opinions one way or another about HOAs. Some people love them, some people not so much. But either way, the General Assembly, in kind of our ultimate wisdom, has decided to set out rules and standards for common interest communities. And so we do have a responsibility to make sure that these common interest communities can function properly. And that's really kind of the core of what this bill is getting at. And so what this bill does is twofold. So it brings some better consistency and due process to enforcement by common interest communities. And it also fixes a very specific problem that makes it difficult to deal with repeat violations. And so regarding the first item, would just draw your attention to lines 24 through 27. And that just makes it clear that all associations have the authority to ensure compliance with association rules by being able to impose very modest penalties. And so the reason why that is so important is that if you don't have that ability, the fallback is that you got to go to court. And going to court can be extraordinarily expensive and time-consuming for all parties involved. And so what this does is make sure that you've got that due process that we have in place that you can go through. And so you get notice, you get a hearing, you got an opportunity to go ahead and correct before a penalty. And so this just makes sure that all associations are able to play by those rules. The second part that we're trying to fix in terms of that problem was brought to my attention by a condo association in my district, but apparently it's something that is a bigger problem. And so let me just lay out the issue. The way the current code reads, a person in violation of the rules, they're given notice, they're given a reasonable opportunity to correct the violation, and then only if the violation remains uncorrected is there a hearing, in which case a person can state their case, and only after that can the HOA impose a penalty up to $50. And so that works really, really well for something like painting your house the wrong color or something along those lines. So you're given a chance to paint it the right color, and if you do it, no harm, no foul. The problem is, let's say you get busted for a noisy party, or you leave trash in the common area, or you engage in disruptive behavior at the pool. As soon as you stop that party, as soon as you pick up that trash, as soon as you stop that disruptive behavior, you have corrected the problem. And since it's corrected, at least the logic in the code, there is no next step. And so unfortunately you do have bad neighbors every once in a while who will have these repeat violations, and what the astute lawyers in this condo association realized is that they were trapped because, again, as soon as they stopped that noisy party, as soon as they picked up that trash, they couldn't find those individuals. And so that's where the language in lines 43 through 45 comes in. It says if a member of the association has already gone through the entire process and then repeats that same violation within a 12-month period, the association provides notice, but they can go ahead and take action. While they didn't have a position on the bill, DPOR was kind enough to approach me to help work on this language, and they felt comfortable to make sure that there was due process involved. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the opportunity to present the bill, and happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Boyce, go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Bouleva, if there is an HOA and some residents who have a long-standing disagreement and it's become a personal thing, is there a remedy set forth in this that could be?
Senator Boysko, I'm not sure that you can ever solve through a fine a personal grudge that goes back and forth. It's really very much focused on just very tangible violations of your rules and responsibilities. Doesn't get into the business of just disagreeing with one another.
Just to follow up, so just to clarify, you're really looking at like people throwing their trash out on the ground, making too much noise, real quality of life annoyances that the HOA does not have the ability to really enforce at this point.
Correct,
Is that
Senator.
correct?
Correct,
Thank you
yes.
very much for the clarification.
Are there people in the real estate or common interest community who wanted to comment on this bill?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Okay, we'll get your question next then. Okay. why don't you come forward, and then we'll get Senator Bell's question.
Great. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Pia Trigiani. I'm here on behalf of Community Associations Institute, which is a membership organization of homeowners, communities, associations, and those who work with them. And I have the same love-hate relationship that many of you have with the homeowners association. So I completely understand the concerns. But I'm here to rise in support of the bill and thank Delegate Bulova for bringing the bill. Gave us an opportunity to discuss it during the Housing Commission work group, which he chairs. This gives an opportunity for associations which take significant burdens off of localities. These community associations exist because they provide services, amenities that traditionally were provided by localities, counties, cities, and towns. And they need the same ability to address rule compliance issues with individuals. We like to think of it as not disenfranchising or dealing with a bad neighbor in support of the good neighbors. Many good neighbors are threatened by conduct of their neighbors. It may affect their ability to enjoy their homes, and so it's important to have an opportunity at the most local level, internal to the association, to try and work through those issues, and that's what this does. Notice and an opportunity to cure, notice in a hearing before any action can be taken. And it levels the playing field between all community associations. Many have this authority in their recorded governing documents, but many older do not. We have a number of people here who experience this on a daily basis in their own communities and are glad to speak in support of the bill. And I'm glad to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Bell, did you want to ask a question before we hear from other witnesses?
My question's for the patron. Kind of takes me back to a personal experience. We received a violation in my neighborhood from the HOA once saying that the front door was faded, but the picture of the house provided wasn't my house. And come to find out, many of my neighbors got the same notice. Somebody didn't know how to use mail merge quite right. So reading in the code, and the part of this is existing code, but I think what you're changing impacts this. There is provisions in the existing code, I think line 46 area, where we're talking about alleged violations and then new violations, so which starts on 42. So my question really is, when we talk about alleged violations, sorry, that's line 32 on alleged violations. When we count new violations, are those alleged violations going to count or not, or they would only count if they've been validated as something that was actually real?
Validated as real. That's the due process part of this.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Bell.
I agree. I'm sure that's the intention, but the way I'm reading it, I guess I want to ask counsel if they think that it reads like that.
So which line, or counsel?
Okay, because it talks about the reasonable violation, correct the alleged violation on line 32, and then we go down to talk about repeat violations. So my concern is that an alleged violation, just because it was alleged, wouldn't go on that record that could count as a repeat later on. Does that make sense what I'm explaining?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator Bell. Yeah, I think that I am following what you're looking at, but I do think that Delegate Bulova is correct. I think that although we are referring to an alleged violation on line 32, because we are more specifically referring to a violation continuing or occurring again on line 34, I think that the due process comes in when we are giving a reasonable opportunity to correct that violation. So I think that's where the due process is before the is if they make that correction, and then if they violate that again, I think that original correction would have been the due process for that, if that makes sense. But please let me know if I wasn't clear, though. Thank you.
I think that satisfies my question. So you're basically saying the due process would ensure that alleged violations are validated before they're considered repeat.
Yes, that is my understanding. Thank you.
I guess I just throw that out there. Is this something we need to clarify? Because, I'm still not getting a warm fuzzy that we're not going to count this against people.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman and Senator, I guess I would rely on council's reading for that. I'm not sure how we could fix that on the fly. If it ends up still being a concern, we can always tighten that up, but I would rely on council in terms of her reading of what the plain language says.
Okay, thank you. Okay, were there others who want to speak to this bill?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Senator Rouse.
Thank you. I have a lot of constituents in my district who live in HOAs. I'm sure there's many other committee members as well. My concern is for our seniors and those who are on a fixed income, who have, and we've seen as of lately, HOA fees are continuously going up, while incomes, especially our seniors, are on a fixed income. And some who are disabled, who aren't all the time able to fix their properties or maintain the HOA level of compliance. Now, if they are in violation of that, and they have, say, for example, they may have the only pool in their family in their HOA, would this restrict their families and even themselves from visiting the facilities? And would this type of piece of legislation, will it continuously add on more fees or be more restrictive if they are already in, say, arrears from just not being able to make the fees from HOA prices going up?
And so, Mr. Chairman, and I think Ms. Trigiani can probably provide a little bit more detail to it, but the way it's designed is that it's $50 per violation, and so there's defined caps on it. I guess, to one of the original points that I made is that the alternative to having a small fine like that is to take a person to court, which is going to take thousands and thousands of dollars. And so again, this is a way to make sure that you're internalizing these kind of issues within the HOA and that you're not having to go to a court in order to go ahead and resolve those issues.
But just to be clear, this does not add fees. It just adds an action for people who perhaps don't pay their fees or engage in other behaviors against the rules.
Mr. Chairman, this doesn't touch the fee structure that's already in the underlying bill.
Okay, Senator Rouse, does that complete your questions, or do you have another?
No, I have another question. Doesn't make me feel better about the bill, but I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
No more questions. Okay. Were there others who were waiting to testify? Please come forward.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I apologize for my voice. I'm sorry. I hope you can hear me. My name is Deborah Carter, and I am the general manager of an HOA in Prince William County that has 1,533 homes and annual assessments of $1.8 million. I've been managing communities for over 30 years, so I've seen a lot. I've done high-rises, condos, and I've been at this HOA now for 16 years. The bill that you're considering would be very beneficial to the HOA that I manage, as well as others, and it would better enable the association to address compliance matters, as Ms. Trigiani said, on a community level. Speaking on behalf of the association that I represent, I first want to state that the primary objective for rules enforcement is compliance. That is what we're after. We're not trying to get more money from people. We're not trying to, penalize them. We want to get compliance. That's what we want. And in the majority of instances, compliance is attained by first sending someone a letter pointing out to them what the problem is and how they can address it. But the bill you're considering is intended to address the minority of homeowners who, for whatever reason, persistently or egregiously violate the rules. Presently, under the current statute, absent express authority in the governing documents, associations are limited in their ability to ensure compliance with rules that are foundation and essential to protect all of the residents of the community. The association that I manage is fortunate that our documents contain authority for the association to take action to encourage compliance, such as action to suspend use of association facilities and services. Suspension of parking privileges, for example, has proven to be extremely effective in encouraging compliance. Without that, or the authority to assess monetary charges for covenants violations, there's little recourse at the association level for violations that occur in the single-family homes.
Okay, we need you to wrap it up if you could, if there's any more points you want to make in summary.
Well, can I share an example with
Please,
you?
briefly.
Okay, we have a homeowner that in a single-family home that performed work on his lot and the adjacent common area that changed the grade and impacted the stormwater drainage, resulting in damage to the common area and to a neighboring lot. The work was performed without association approval and in violation of the county permit that the owner obtained. There were numerous other violations on the lot, and this situation began in 2020. And initially, I had an informal conversation with the owner, explained the procedures, which he ignored. Then we initiated the due process procedure. We sent numerous letters. We had numerous hearings for each violation. The homeowner did not attend the hearings, and the committee's decision to suspend use of amenities resulted in the homeowner erecting an above-ground pool in his backyard, which constituted yet another violation. Meanwhile, we're hearing complaints from owners throughout the community, not even just the adjacent neighbors, but throughout the community about the condition of this lot and asking why aren't we doing anything about it. So finally, the board had no choice but to file suit against this homeowner, which has been very time-consuming, it's been expensive, and potentially divisive.
Thank you.
Yeah, so.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, thanks, Ms. Carter. Okay, were there others? We're going to try and wrap this up. We've got a number of patrons waiting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and committee, I'm Don Boswell. Been on the board of Twin Hickory Association in Western Henrico for 6 years, and I'll just be brief. I'd like to speak in favor of this bill. It's something that we need to protect the homeowners that do follow the guidelines and the rules of the association. There's only a handful of people that do this. This is not a money-making thing. We have almost $1.5 million in assessments. Last year, we only had $8,500 in monetary fines for the people, not fines, but monetary penalties for people that were repeat offenders or didn't come into compliance. So I'd like to speak in favor of the bill on behalf of the volunteer home board leaders.
Thank you. Okay, and I see one other witness here.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. I will be brief, as most of the colleagues before me have said what I was going to say. But I would like to just say, my name is Dave Coyle. I'm a resident of Fairfax County. I'm the general manager of Cascades Community Association, which is a large-scale community in Loudoun and Fairfax counties of about 6,000 homes, 6,600 homes, 15,000 residents. I stand in support of this bill as it would greatly help the daily operations of a community association to encourage people to participate in a peaceful resolution of a potential property issue without trying to go to court. The one thing I would like to add is when you start taking people to court, those lawsuits are added to every resale disclosure. And I am getting more and more lenders and mortgage companies calling me asking why this is on here. So anytime we are not trying to take people to court, we do not want to take people to court. We don't even want to fine people. Out of a $6.2 million budget I have, we budget $3,000 in compliance issues. We just want people to be able to follow the rules and regulations because, as Debbie said, homeowners are calling repeatedly saying, why isn't the association doing anything? And we are just running around rampant, sending carefully worded letters and trying to get people to comply and, again, encourage compliance of all the rules and regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is there any other discussion or motions from members of the committee?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion.
Sarah Boyce, go.
Having worked at the county level and with a number of HOAs, I understand that there are gaps where the HOAs just cannot take action on something. I think this would help, and so I move that we report the bill.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, there's a motion, a second, to report HB 2098. All in favor indicate your preference, and those opposed to the same on the voting board.
Ayes 8, no 7.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you all have been very generous with your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Delegate. Okay, now let's try and move through some of these.